Now we're recording and we will start.
Can you feel it? Can you feel it? So much sex. Can you feel it? So much sex. Can you feel it? So much sex. Can you feel it?
Woo! Don't mess with me. Fridays. I'm in the gym on Fridays, do my boxing thing on Fridays. So welcome. April 9th, 2021, the official first episode of your favorite new podcast, Real Talk with Coach Q and
Broker Wes.
all right, perfect. So for the very small number of people that may not know who we are, we might as well do some introductions. So my name is Qierre McGlory. I am a coach. I also go by Coach Q. I'm also a realtor. I'm also a motivational speaker. I'm also a trainer. I'm also a speaker. I do a lot of stuff, right? But a lot of it really has to do with self development because I'm really passionate about helping people grow, helping people learn. Now I'm going to let Wes do his introduction.
Hey everybody, so my name is Wes Oliver. I am Broker Wes. I say that because I'm a mortgage broker. I've been doing this for a little over 10 years. I've only been a broker for a couple of years, but I've been a loan officer for a little over 10 years. I do a lot of other things as well, but this is my main focus. And glad to be here and excited to be with you guys.
Excellent. So, what we like to start with is we like to share what we call success secrets. So these are secrets to success, right? I know.
Yep.
Why are we sharing this with you? Because we want you to be better. We want you to know the secrets to success. So what I like to share with you guys today is something I learned from my coach. And he was talking about the difference between motivation and inspiration. Because someone actually called in and asked, like, hey, how do you stay motivated? How do you stay positive? How do you stay motivated to provide value each and every day to your clients? And he said, it's not necessarily motivation. I'm inspired to provide value each and every day. It's inspiring for me to provide value each and every day. So for him, he said, don't focus on being motivated to do something. Focus on being inspired because it raises your level to another level than what a motivation would do for you. So he shared that. So what I want to challenge you guys is to really change your mindset to going from being motivated to being inspired. Because inspired is connected to driven. Inspired and driven are pretty much synonymous in terms of their definition. So be inspired to do what you want to do in your life, whether you want to coach, whether you want to sell, whether you want to teach, whatever you want to do, be inspired. And Wes, what do you think about that when you apply it to your life?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And the thing about being, we say motivational speaker all the time. We refer to people as such. And when we talk about motivation versus drive or inspiration, what it really makes me think of is I'm sure you've been to different conferences and whatnot and heard different motivational speakers, right?
Absolutely.
Here's the thing. When you're in those conferences and in those situations, it feels good and it is motivating. And everybody in there at that moment feels motivated. And what ends up happening is they leave that environment, they all go back to their homes and whatnot, and most of the people do nothing and change nothing because they were motivated, but they were not driven or inspired. So motivation is basically lighting a match, and drive is the fire that burns, that continuously burns. So motivation is great, but you have to understand motivation is just a starting point. It's a spark, but it's not the fire. And you have to find the fire, and that fire is whatever truly inspires you, your true why. We talk about the why all the time. That's what it is.
Yeah, I love that. I love about the fire because my wife knows about the fire. So, Wes, obviously we're in the business. We're in the real estate business. So this question that we get all the time, and I'm hearing it more often. It seems like I'm hearing it more often than normal. Is it a good time to buy a house?
Right. And that's a great question. And I think this is our most important discussion for the day, right? The main event, if you will. And I'll tell you from my standpoint, as a mortgage broker, just knowing where rates are right now, I still think it's a great time to buy, especially because rates are still historically low. And what that means for somebody who's going to buy a home, that means that you're going to have more purchase power. That's going to allow you to qualify for more. And it's going to allow you to qualify for more at a lower payment. So that's a key thing. That's an important thing. So if you're ready for the responsibility of becoming a homeowner and you're ready to do, take that next step, it's a great time to buy. Now, I'm sure from your standpoint, it's a little different because, what's going on in the real estate industry might be different. But how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, it really comes down to something that I learned really early on in the business. It comes down to three things. Are you financially able to purchase a home?
Mm-hmm.
Are you planning to live in this house for at least 2 years?
Right.
And are you ready for the responsibility of taking on a mortgage?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it really comes down to those three questions, because what I try to do with my clients, I try to take out the whole world effect. And when I say about the world effect, I'm saying about what you're hearing, whether
Right.
it's whether you're reading the newspaper, whether you're hearing on the radio, whether you're seeing on social media or television, right? That's the world view. Because at the end of the day, it's what's best for you, right? It may be best for you, John, to buy a house right now,
Right.
but maybe for Sarah, it's not a great time for her to buy a house. So for me, I break it down from you getting away from the world view and going to the individual view. What's best
Right.
for you?
Right. And let's flesh that out a little further, as far as like the worldview, because one of the things that you're hearing right now as far as the worldview is it's a seller's market, or it's harder to get an offer accepted and whatnot. And yeah, there are challenges. It's not necessarily an easy thing to buy a home. It can be simple, but it's not necessarily easy. But I'm hearing that more and more from different clients that I talk to. I'm hearing that it's going to take longer to get my offer accepted, or my offer is not going to be accepted, or I'm going to have to go way above asking, or it's a seller's market. There's not a lot of inventory out there. So what do you say to something like that?
Well, for me, at the end of the day, it comes down to you're looking at buying one house,
Right.
right? You're looking at buying one house. So regardless if a house is getting multiple offers on it, because at the end of the day, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, I'm working for you,
Right.
right? So whether there's 20 offers, 2 offers, 50 offers, right?
Right.
My objective is to get our offer accepted, right? So for me, it's about, helping you get your offer accepted, serving you as your representative,
Right.
right? That's what I tell my clients, and that's what I put in their heads. Like, listen, I'm gonna go to battle for you, right?
Mhm.
I got my iron on. I'm ready to go,
Right.
right? Because that's what it really comes down to. Regardless of, well, this house got 37 offers, this one got 50 offers. Listen, there's always going to be a
Right.
winner in a multiple offer situation. My objective is to make sure we are the winner or the
Right.
winners.
Yeah, and I just try to remind people also that right now, all that really means is you have to be more active. That means you just have to do more. So, we're in sales, right?
Absolutely.
And we talk about conversion rates in sales, in the sales, industry. So what that means is you have to cast a wider net and you have to be more active. So I know you've certainly come across this with like buyers who want to go look at homes like once every other week or once a month or something like that, right? Or they're only putting in an offer like every so often and whatnot. And so in this market, you just have to be more active, so you can be in the right situation and catch the right situation at the right time. Like because if you're only casting your net, once every few weeks, then yeah, it is going to be much harder than if you're constantly looking at homes, constantly finding stuff that you like, constantly putting offers in on those homes, right?
Absolutely. And I gotta give that man a applause for that one. He hit it right in the head. I mean, you can't go looking at houses once every 2 weeks or submit an offer once a month. You really
Right.
have to be active at it. So definitely great touch on that. That's a great way to close that part. So now we're going to move on to our next session. Hot topics.
Okay, so yeah, and this is a segment really where we're just kind of drawn from things we see out in the world and in the media space, and that kind of relate to what we're talking about here, but not necessarily a real estate driven topic or show. So my wife loves to watch this show called Married at First Sight. And me being the supportive husband I am, I sit on the couch with her and I watch it every week, right? So if you don't know, the premise of the show is you take two strangers who've never met before, they get married at first sight, and then I believe they have like 8 weeks that they're living together, and eventually they have to decide whether or not they want to continue on with the marriage. So one of the topics that always comes up in the course of the program eventually is they start talking about finances, right? So there was a particular couple last week, and they were having a discussion. They were going through their budget and their expectations of the budget. Now, keep in mind, we're going to start from the premise that the husband in particular was focused on buying a home. And the wife also, was also with that program as well. So they start going through their different budgets, and the wife has like $450 budgeted in for personal care, and I believe like the husband had put in like $200 for entertainment for them for the month, right? And the wife goes, $200, that's like one date. So they're kind of hitting a little bit of a turbulence,
That's gotta be
going
awkward.
back and forth within that conversation.
Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah,
gonna be awkward.
going back and forth within that conversation. And, the husband was more focused on how they were going to live, and she was more focused on, the lifestyle that they're going to live.
But Wes, isn't lifestyle a good thing, right? I mean, everyone loves a lifestyle, right? You all want a lifestyle, right? Everybody wants a lifestyle. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, lifestyle is great, but when you have those goals such as home ownership, because we know it's going to be the biggest purchase that you're probably going to make in your lifetime, right? And most people are in a position to where they're going to have to come up with their down payment as well as their closing costs. And not only that, but you also have to consider it's very rare that you're going to be able to go from renting to buying an ownership and keeping your payment the same or lowering it. More than likely, you're going to be paying more for your mortgage than you do for your rent. So you kind of have to regard that and be aware of that. And you have to kind of make plans about how we're going to deal with that going forward. And I can tell you from my own experiences, when I usually have that first introduction, that first conversation with the couple, one of the things I always ask them, and most of them cannot answer this question: what is the maximum amount you'd feel comfortable paying for a mortgage every month? And most of the time when I ask them that, ooh, geez, we didn't even think about it. Well, that's an important question.
This is probably what's going on in their head when they ask this question to you. When you ask nobody wants to talk about budgets and stuff like that. That's not sexy. No one wants to talk about that.
No, it's not, but it's the question though, right? Mm-hmm. Because as I always tell people that I work with, I am here to create homeowners, not home buyers.
Yes, and we got to cheer for that one. We got to cheer for that one. Absolutely.
Yeah. And here's the distinction. I don't want you to be in a position where you're able to close the deal on getting a home and getting the keys, only to find out that within a short period of time or years later, you have to sell that home and get out of it because you can't afford it. And you're, what do we say? House rich, but cash poor. We don't want you to be in that situation. So those are important questions to have. And so just to tie it back to the conversation they were having, you are going to have to make sacrifices more than likely, because most of us are on a limited income. Most of us are on a limited, amount of discretionary income every month. and what you can put away and save. Most people are going to be limited in that as well. So you have to understand you're going to have to make some sacrifices. I always tell people this as well. If you want to become a homeowner, you're probably going to have to change at least a little bit about your lifestyle. And obviously, we don't want to be in a position where we own a home, but the rest of our life is just like unfulfilling, right?
Right, absolutely.
So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to get rid of everything, but you are going to have to take a haircut in certain areas. And so I think the husband in that particular situation had the right idea, which is, let's be mindful of how we're spending and how we're enjoying our money outside of the home. And let's just look at where we can cut back. And that's why the first thing you should do,
Wait, one more time.
the
Say that one more
first
time.
thing,
The first thing.
the first thing,
First thing.
the very first thing,
First thing.
you guys should sit down and write out a budget. And when I say budget, start here. Don't write out what you want to spend. Let's start by figuring out what we do spend. And I mean, you have to get as detailed as you can. And the great thing is, with the technology with your banks now and the online banking, you can go into most of these banks now have it set up where you can pull up your statement or your monthly spending and it'll segment everything for you. You know what I'm saying? And you can group it by any number of different ways. You can group it by the vendor. So you can say, how much am I spending on Starbucks in a month? Or you can.
I don't want to look at my Starbucks bill.
A lot of people don't. Yeah, a lot of people don't want to do that. But, you want to figure out how much you're really spending on everything. Then that way you can determine where you can make those cuts. And by the way, my guess is there are going to be some things that you spend on in a month that you're going to look at and you're actually going to be pretty embarrassed or disgusted about. You know what I mean? Because I don't know, like fast food, for instance, just grab and drive through. I guarantee you most people would be surprised by how much they're spending on eating out every month. And I'm not talking about date night. I'm talking about Wednesday, leaving the office. I got a craving. I'm going to get a Big Mac and some fries.
That sounds like a personal story there, Wes.
It is personally inspired, yes. Minus the Big Mac. But
Right.
but yeah, I mean, I think once you sit down, and so I think that's kind of where they were also experiencing that friction because they decided to start with where do we want to be, you know what I mean, or what do we need to budget every month? Like, what's my ideal versus why don't we see where we are now and see where we can cut?
Right.
So, like I said, that's just a great place to start. And I was watching that, with my wife, and I'm like, this is a great lesson for a lot of, couples to learn that want to buy a home.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Wes. Thank you for that. Guess what, guys? You guys get to replay this as many times as you want. So you definitely make sure to take out those nuggets that Wes has delivered. So thank you for that. All right. Now we're moving on to our next segment. Bright lights, big city. So in the segment, we're always going to talk about a specific city in our community. We're going to start with Orange County. Why? Because we both live in Orange County. We both were raised in Orange County. And we're going to go alphabetical order. And we're going to go frontward. So we're going to start with A, not Z, right? Thinking about it, Wes, are there any Z cities in Orange County that you can think of?
I don't think no.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think Y. I think we end with Y.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with A today. And we're going to start with Anaheim. Yes, give it up for Anaheim. Also known as the home of Mickey Mouse, Disney, right? Now, a little history lesson for you for Anaheim. Anaheim was actually established in 1857, and it was actually the second city established in Los Angeles County at the time. Now, a few years later, Los Angeles separated from Orange County, and Anaheim was actually a predominantly agricultural city until Disney arrived, which is in 1955. So when Disney arrived, that's when we started to see a lot more industrial buildings coming in, hotels, strip malls. So a lot of you guys may be familiar with downtown Disney, the Platinum Triangle, just to name a few places in Anaheim. And also, baseball, Anaheim Angels, right? Obviously, they're in Anaheim. We're big fans of the Angels, so definitely looking forward to going back to the games. And also, got to give it up to the Ducks, right? You got to give it up to the Ducks. Right? I mean, there's lots of Duck games, have a good time. So, those are just some things about Anaheim. And then we'll let Wes drop in some knowledge about Anaheim as well.
Yeah, so a really great city, and we were both part of the Chamber of Commerce.
Absolutely.
Matter of fact, the Chamber of Commerce is headquartered just down the street from my office, right across the street from Angel Stadium, which is on State College and Orangewood. And the Chamber is really great. The Chamber is very helpful for businesses. I know my wife is clamoring, like most other people. Disneyland is reopening. She's getting pretty excited about it.
We gotta get over Disneyland. Yes. Opening. Yes.
Yeah, I hear you're gonna have to make appointments, scheduled appointments to go.
Yeah.
She was just showing me what they did with I forget the park across the street from Disneyland, but they've
California
got
Adventure.
California Adventure. They got the new, I think it's like Marvel display there or something like that.
What? Marvel? Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, it looks really cool. So that'll be fun. You got the packing district, which is a great place to get a bite to eat. You and I have had, lunch meetings down there. So really great city. And I forgot to ask you. So are we grouping Anaheim Hills in there? I mean, technically it's still Anaheim.
I think we can do Anaheim Hills separately. I think Anaheim Hills has some character that we can talk about separately. So next show we'll do Anaheim Hills. So today we'll just stick with Anaheim. Next show we'll do Anaheim Hills.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so like I said, one of the cool places to be, and it's really great for businesses. I think we can all figure out that it's heavily reliant on tourism.
Absolutely.
Because you have a lot of businesses that flourish from Disney being there. And of course from the Angels, and of course from the Ducks, and not only just the Ducks, but obviously there's a lot of great concerts that you can see at the Honda Center.
Oh, yeah.
And then not only the Honda Center, but the Grove, not the Grove in LA that everybody talks about all the time, the Grove in Anaheim, which me and my wife see shows there all the time, or at least we were before, the pandemic and everything. But
yeah,
so it breeds a lot of great tourism and whatnot, with all the different concerts, the shows and everything. So yeah, really great city with a lot to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and also just throw some real estate information there for you guys for the city of Anaheim. So average days on market in Anaheim are about 7 days, right? So you pretty much have a week when a house comes on the market and when the house is sold. Average sales price in Anaheim right now is about $647,000. So it's gone up about 3% within the last few months. So I mean, Anaheim is definitely a popular city. Obviously, in terms of Orange County, definitely check out Anaheim. It has a lot to offer. And like I said, each week we're going to highlight another city. So next week we will be doing Anaheim Hills. So yeah. So next section, it's a new section. Obviously, this is all new, but it's Wes's section, right? So now we're going to go into what is called the Wes Files.
You hear something? You hear something?
Welcome to the Wes Files.
Okay, so guys, what this is basically about is I'm constantly learning from the experiences I have within each transaction, most of them being purchase transactions. Because if you keep in mind, like every time I enter a purchase transaction, I'm dealing with two realtors usually. I'm dealing with an escrow agent, a title officer. I'm dealing with insurance. I'm dealing with appraisers, home inspectors, termite inspectors. And every transaction, it's a full-on circus. And I mostly, as the finance person, it's my job to be the ringleader of the circus.
Yes, give it up for the ringleader. Give it up for the ringleader. Yes, I love that.
Yeah, so that means that I have to make sure that everybody is on point and everybody's doing what they need to do. And by the way, most people think of it as if I'm the only person that can mess up the deal or mess up the transaction, being the loan officer, the finance person. No, everyone involved in that transaction has a part to play, and every person can make or break that transaction or make it harder or make it easier depending on what they do and how they do their job. So as I always say, usually the big question is, how fast can we close? How fast can we close, right? To which my response is, as fast as everyone wants to close. And the reason I say that is because your escrow is only as fast as the slowest person involved in the transaction. Because I've been in situations where we're waiting on escrow to do stuff, we're waiting on title, insurance, you name it, agents. So I'd like to, like I said, take a little nugget from all my experiences and kind of share that with people to kind of warn them about, you know, uh, things that can go wrong in their transaction and ways that they can have a better transaction or a smoother transaction. So today I want to talk about the hiring the listing agent to represent you as the buyer.
Okay. Dual
Now
agency.
I have a particular, client that I've worked with several times. I won't name names. And their thing is to always forego having an agent represent them as the buyer and always work with a listing agent. Now, let me tell you why they always want to do that. They feel it puts them in a better position to have their offer accepted because they know, or the expectation is, the listing agent is going to get paid on both sides of the transaction for representing the buyer and the seller. And they feel like the listing agent is going to fight harder to get their offer accepted because of it. So,
Not always the case.
no, not always the case at all. By the way, it should never be the case. And not to say that here's how it's supposed to work. Because you and I both know, as a listing agent, you have a responsibility to your client to present the offers to them and help them choose the best offer for them. And if the person that is electing to have the listing agent does not have the best offer, your offer is probably not going to get accepted. It's just not going to happen. Even though it would be beneficial financially to the listing agent, that's not how that seller is going to make that decision. So that's your first issue. Secondly, the other thing is, and the big concern I have, you do have some great agents out there that are very good at, maintaining a balance between representing the seller and representing the buyer. Most listing agents are not good at it. And they're going to tend to favor the seller in that transaction. Why? Because the seller is the person that created the opportunity for the listing agent. And the money is going to be made off the listing more than likely, right?
Right.
And by the way, the seller is under contract as well. Where
No,
usually
that's
the
a
buyer's
huge
not.
part. Your fiduciary duty. Absolutely.
Right. And the seller is usually under contract where the buyer is not. So with the seller, you have at least X amount of months to sell the home.
Right.
And with the buyer, they could get cold feet next week and decide we're not going to buy anything and just poof, gone.
That's true.
And by the way, they have the relationship with the seller because the seller is the one they've been talking to over and over again. A lot of times they have a relationship with the seller before they put the home on the market. So you're going to tend to favor the seller in that transaction. So let me bring it all the way back. This particular transaction that I was in with this client, the listing agent put him in harm's way in a number of different situations, all because they were more focused on getting the transaction done and more focused on representing the seller.
Right.
So where we start, the listing agent tried to get my client to put in an offer and remove contingencies up front. Now, let me tell you why that's a bad thing. If the appraisal happens to come in short and you waive your contingency for the appraisal, and it comes in short, you have to come in with the extra money to make that happen, and you're bound to move forward even if it comes in short. And by the way, guess what happened on this particular transaction?
I'm gonna guess it came in short.
The appraisal came in low. So yeah, so that was number one. That was a big problem. Later on, as we went throughout the transaction, another thing that happened. So usually you don't want to remove your loan contingency until you have a conditional approval, because you want the conditional approval from the underwriter that works for the lender,
Right.
so that you, number one, not only have an approval, but number two, so you can see what the conditions are for you to be able to close the loan. Because once you look at that list of conditions, if it's basically, basic items that you're going to be able to provide, then it's not a big deal. But for some reason, if there's any issue whatsoever and you remove your loan contingency, now what? Right? That becomes a problem as well. So I had no clue. The listing agent got him to remove his contingencies before we ever had a conditional approval. Now, Qierre, you've represented buyers. You've represented many buyers with me on transactions. And I know there's no way you're removing that contingency without talking to me first.
Of course.
Right?
I wouldn't want this to happen.
Ow!
Exactly. So they were talked into removing their contingencies before we have even had an approval. Now, thankfully, because I'm really good at what I do and I pre-approved them beforehand, we didn't have any hiccups and everything, went through.
Absolutely. Yes.
But it could have gotten, really ugly as well. So I'll just end with this. And it's perfectly fine if you decide you want to work with the listing agent. Perfectly fine. But I'm just going to leave you with this. If you were going to court and you were going to sue someone, would you hire the same attorney that the defense would have, or would you have your own attorney?
Of course, you're gonna have your own attorney. That would be ridiculous. Of course.
Right. Because you would want somebody that's there to represent you and to represent your interest and your interest alone. And then, by the way, we know it's against the rules for you to share information with your buyer about your seller and vice versa. I'll bet you anything there are listing agents who do it anyway. I bet they are. So in closing, like I said, this is just one of the experiences I've had, and I've had a few different experiences where the listing agent was representing both parties in a particular matter. And like I said, sometimes it turns out well, and some listing agents are good at that. Sometimes it doesn't. So you have to be very careful about getting in that situation, because you could lose a lot if the listing agent puts you in a bad situation and gets you to make unforced errors in that transaction. So that is our Wes file for the week.
Well, thank you for sharing, Wes. Thank you. All right. Now that's Friday.
Yep.
So we have a segment called Things to Do for the weekend. Right? Now I know obviously it's COVID, so there's still limited things you can do, but I believe since last week, you can go to the movie theaters now. You can go to restaurants now, obviously limited capacity. I believe you can go to bars now. You can go to libraries. You can go to museums. You can go hiking. So there's still plenty of things that you can do. It's just, you just have to make sure that you're wearing your mask and maintaining your social distance. And Wes, is there anything that you would like to share? Anything I might have missed about things to do?
Well, so one of the things is that you didn't mention, and I know because my wife just sent me a text before we started the show.
Gotta love those wives. Gotta love those wives. We love.
Yeah. She lit up the bat signal. So The Improv's opening here shortly, so you'll be able to do comedy shows again.
Comedy shows.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Oliver, for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so that's one thing that we're both looking forward to. And then we talked about the theme parks, opening up here shortly. So you also have that as well. And then you just go on out and hang out the beach.
I mean, it's what's funny, Wes? Like the beach. It's so funny. I probably throughout the whole year, I probably go to the beach maybe all of 2 to 3 times, right? I think I'm just spoiled. We're so close to the beach. For me, I just take it for granted. You know what I mean? Because when I talk to people that are out of state, they're always like, "Oh man, see, so you must be at the beach like all the time." And it's like, no, not really. It's usually just like twice a year, maybe once on Father's Day and once on Mother's Day. That's pretty much the times that I'm at the beach. But I'm definitely gonna take more advantage of it since we're so close by to it.
See, but we know too much though. That's the difference because we know about the ordeal that it is to get to the beach. You know what I mean?
That's part of
driving there, the parking, the sand, the cleanup. We know too much.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't have a beach without the sand, right? Yes, absolutely. Well, is there anything else you want to share with the world right now, Wes?
Yeah, so I think we're going to do a market update. I don't know if we got to it, but
the market
update. So let me tell you about where interest rates are. So rates are down a little bit this week, which is a good thing. Right now on a 30-year fix, the average rate, and this information is directly from Freddie Mac. For those of you who don't know, Freddie Mac is a government-supported entity that insures a lot of the conventional loans that people would get.
Let's say, Freddie Mac is conventional loans?
Yeah, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. Okay, so you can get this information right off the Freddie Mac website every week. So right now on a 30-year fixed, the average rate is 3.13% at a cost of 0.7 points, right? And then a 15-year fixed is 2.42% at a cost of 0.6 fees. And then if you're interested in the 5/1 ARM, the average is 2.92%. So the market had been going up over the last few weeks. This week we saw it come back down a little bit. Even when the market was up, a week ago or whatever, still historically low rates, guys. I mean, I understand. I get it. It's hard to see something that you could have had and then you can no longer have it. But you also have to use some historical context because I got people, that are like, oh man, the rate's already all the way up to 3.25. Yeah, but I mean, the last time I purchased a home, which was in 2008, the rate was 6.75. It's still historically low. It's still a great rate. So, try not to let, what do they say? Try not to let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
that causes procrastination. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's where the rates are at this point in time. And of course, I remind people of this already. The most important thing, if you're not actually in escrow right now, as far as rates, it's more about how they're trending over a period of time, not so much, what it is right now at this moment. Because you can't take advantage of it right now because you're not in escrow and you can't lock the rate. So the market's going to go through its fluctuations and you just have to figure out where the market is by the time you're in a position to actually do something, right?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I definitely agree. And I'm going to actually be showing properties this weekend to actually our clients. So I'll be showing properties to our clients this weekend, and I'm glad you brought up that point because I think a lot of people do get fixated on the rate. It's like, but you're not even in the escrow yet. So,
right.
I mean, we're not going to lock in any rate at this moment now. So don't be focused on what the current rate is. Because like you said, it's a cycle. It's a structure. It's a pattern, right? So that's what you're in right now until you're actually in escrow. And that's when you're actually paying attention to it.
Right. And then just last thing. So for those of you who don't know, a conventional loan typically means what it means is it's a non-government loan, right? So it's not a loan that's insured or guaranteed by a government agency. So the government, the rates on the government loans are typically lower than what you're going to see for a conventional mortgage. So like that's USDA, FHA, VA, and those are all on a 30-year fix. Those are all probably right around 2.5%, 2.625% on those types of loans right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there is hope for you VA and FHA buyers out there. So there is hope for you guys. So
Yes,
we
they're
have gotten
all
our
great
opportunity.
programs. They're all great
Right.
programs. And what I say is that because usually people think FHA is specifically for first-time home buyers or specifically for people who have bad credit, and not at all. It's just a matter of it's the right tool for the right job. And certain people are in a position where FHA is going to make the most sense. Some people are in a position where conventional is going to make the most sense. It really just depends, but it's not a situation where someone with terrible credit automatically is going to do FHA, or someone with everyone with terrible credit has an FHA loan, or all the FHA loans go to terrible people or
Right.
irresponsible people, whatever. So yeah, that's basically it. Tough one today, man. I'm just gonna tell you. I'm just gonna throw it out there, man. DMX.
Yeah. Yeah. That was hard. I wasn't expecting you to bring it up, but since you did, yeah. I mean, I grew up on DMX. You know what I mean? I grew up on the Rough Riders. I mean, that was my jam. The thing one of the things I loved about DMX is DMX was himself. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like he was just himself. He was just
Yeah.
he was always the same person. You know what I mean? Regardless if it's on his own track or if he was featured with somebody else. You know what I mean? Like DMX is DMX. Like rough. You know what I mean? Like you get what you get when it comes to DMX. He was such an authentic artist. He has so many different facets about himself. Obviously, he was also religious as well. And I mean, one of the things I love about DMX is that we got to experience him in different areas, like not just
Mm-hmm.
in music, but for some of you guys that may not know, he was also an actor too. And
Yep.
he was actually a pretty decent actor as well. And
Yeah.
he also was a preacher too. So yeah, it's definitely a huge loss in the industry and the world in general. But I'm just glad that we had the opportunity to really see his 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 creativity side. I'm glad that we got to really experience that. So
Yeah. I really what I really enjoyed about him was he had that thing with along with Tupac where they could they could invite you in and show you the street life, the probably most of the stuff that more conservative people would complain about as far as their lyrics and whatnot. But at the same time, there was a much another layer, a deeper layer within certain songs and themes that would let you know they were always thinking about a bigger picture. You know what I mean? And they were, and even with the quote unquote street life or whatever, he was still kind of tormented by that and aspired to do better, aspired to be better, wanted more, you know, just because those are some of my favorite songs, like the prayers he used to do on all his, he used to have a great prayer on like all his albums, and just particular songs where it's like he would make you feel a certain way and make you think about a bigger picture. And it was almost like it was almost like in those movies where you see the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other, and they're fighting back and forth. He would kind of show you that on a deeper level within his own life and how he was struggling within to deal with the demons, and not specifically being possessed, but his own demons and whatnot, and wanting to and aspiring to be more and do more. So that was yeah, that was pretty interesting. But yeah, bummer. It's terrible, but yeah.
yeah, well, we'll definitely remember DMX for for every thing that he brought to the world. You know what I mean? Like definitely, focus on those things. So, our condolences to his family,
Oh, absolutely.
to everyone that has, been impacted by his life, and it just shows you like life is precious. You know what I mean? Like take the time that you have on this planet to do things that you truly love. And I feel that, DMX took the time to really, chase his passions and do things that he loved. I mean, how many rappers could you say, have also been able to do movies, and to also, to be a preacher, and you know what I mean? Like not a lot of rappers could do those things, you know what I mean, and still be seen as, this guy's DMX, like he's no joke. And then on the other side, he's giving a sermon, right?
Right.
So yeah, man. I mean, that's what I'm gonna remember him for. Just the creative side and what he was able to do and show the different shades, sides of his life.
He made his mark. That's the
Absolutely,
thing.
he
He made
sure
his
did.
mark, and his impact and whatnot will still be here long after he's gone. So that's what you want to do. Make your mark.
Absolutely, Earl Simmons, Dogman X, DMX.
Yep.
Rest in peace, man. Rest in peace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man.
Uh, anything else going on in entertainment?
You know what? I haven't checked. I haven't checked. So that's the last thing. That's the last thing I read this afternoon. So
It's funny. I've been watching I rewatched a bunch of the Star Wars and whatnot,
mhm.
and I'm starting to think that the Emperor was right. The dark side of the Force is stronger.
Why? What makes you say that?
Well, if you think about the prequel trilogies, right? You've seen them all,
Uh huh.
right? The Attack of the Clone, all that. So you have all these Jedi, right?
Hmm.
You already had all these Jedi. You only had two Sith Lords, right?
Right.
And they needed someone with as strong as Anakin in the Force to bring balance to the Force, right? And then
Hmm.
on top of that, you hear people being tempted to the dark side all the time. How often do you see people being tempted away from the dark side?
Not enough power.
And the fact that the emperor was able to operate right underneath their noses and to do all this stuff, and they had no clue. The only thing Yoda and Mace Windu could come up with is, you know, the dark side is growing, or I mean, they just had a feeling, but they
Right.
couldn't do it. He was able to hide in plain sight as strong as he was, as strong as they were. You know, Yoda's been a Jedi at this point for like almost a century, a millennium, and the Emperor hung out in his backyard, and Yoda didn't know it and couldn't figure it out.
Hmm.
How does that happen?
Oh man, that's one of life's many mysteries, Wes.
Well, that's what I said. I really do think the dark side might be stronger.
Yeah. I would agree with that too. I mean, for you to be able to hide in plain sight and not have any people suspicious of you, yeah, it does
Yeah,
take a different level. Absolutely.
yeah, it's crazy. You know what I mean? Like they had to go way across. Obi-Wan had to go way across the galaxy to hide on Tatooine. Yoda had to go hide in the Dagobah system with basically no life forms. If it had been the Emperor, he'd have been still on Coruscant, just kicking it. They'd have never known he was there.
Oh man. So yeah, so you see what Wes does with his time sometimes, right? On his off time, he's definitely solving mysteries.
Hey, it's just, when I'm reading and I'm watching movies and stuff, things are just it's always firing. It's always firing.
Yeah,
I'm always thinking, always thinking.
I
And
love
like
it.
I said, I've seen all these movies many times, but this last time I watched it, I started watching all of them. I'm like, huh, I think the Emperor is right. By the way, never mind the fact that the Emperor was able to reincarnate himself in the new trilogy. How about that?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he was
Very
able to
true.
reincarnate himself and almost take the Jedi down again.
Yeah.
All Obi-Wan could do is show up as a ghost every now and again. And Yoda, they can just show up as a ghost every now and again and give some advice. You know, they're like Jedi fortune cookies.
Oh, geez. Jedi fortune cookie. There you go. I like that. I like that. Jedi fortune cookie. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. So I hope you guys took notes there too about the theories behind Star Wars. Going to be good, bad, uh, good force, bad force, right? Which one is stronger? Because I mean, Wes did make a good argument. So I'd love to see any other arguments that you guys have to counter what he said. So that's awesome. Yeah, thank you for that, Wes. Anything else you like to share before we close out our first episode of Real Talk with Coach Q and Broker Wes?
No, I think that's it, man. I think the Jedi, the Jedi discussion and the philosophy on the dark and light side of the Force.
Nice.
I think we're good with that.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for hanging out with us on our very first episode of Real Talk with Coach Q and
Broker Wes.
all right, guys. So until next time, catch you on the next episode.
Yeah.